you were to ask me what a cabin is, and if I were to stare sweatily at the ceiling for 60 seconds, what would that say to you as a prosecutor?
Well, I only realized it afterwards. You realize what he was thinking. He was trying to find a way to distinguish cruise cabins from a cabin in the woods so that he could somehow justify his lie. There's no question. He's like, well, they're asking me about a cabin in the woods. I've been on cruise cabins with her. Can I lie about this? He's like, yes, I can. I lie. Did you see the mashup when they played Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On and a little cloud bubble of Fani getting dressed? It's wild, but they can't keep track of their lies, but the stats don't lie. Fani Willis gets out there and she says, I had to move because of the Trump case. Unless I've misunderstood the timeline, she had to move because she was getting threats well before the indictment. So they can't even keep track of their own lies. It's wild.
So, I mean, there are a lot of people saying, including a lot of pundits who clearly hate Donald Trump, that the judges just got to disqualify because they've lied so much to the court and the case. I mean, do you see that happening?
I predicted the judge was going to disqualify her before this breaking news, the latest breaking of the phone records, which, unless there's unless this expert really blew it and made a mistake, I don't know how they get out of this now. So I predicted it before. It seems to be a necessary conclusion now, because people might make the Steelman argument, well, they lied about stuff unrelated to the affair, whatever. I mean, even if you can make that argument, they've lied on the stand. They've discredited themselves professionally. There's no way you can let these people go back to prosecuting what is the most important case in the history of America, prosecuting an ex-former president under RICO laws. They've lied, which shows culpability. It shows that they knew they had something to hide. And they've been caught red-handed, like black on white. You can't argue with cell data. And I think it's a foregone conclusion now. I'm sticking to my prediction. But we need to see what happens this week, because they still got Terrence Bradley there. They're still having the fight over access to the in-camera review of Terrence Bradley's text messages. But I mean, it's going to go from bad to worse, because I think they're getting disqualified. But I think they're going to face professional sanctions after this, because it seems they've all lied under oath. They've all lied in the context of their professions. And these are the people putting people behind bars. You can't just forget about that and say, go back to doing your job after this.
So I listen, I'm no legal professional. I would never claim to be particularly smart in this arena. But how, if you're so discredited, how do you go and bring this prosecution against Trump? Like, how do you not? It would be such a farcical demonstration, because the clear criminals are the ones trying to prosecute crime.
Well, just imagine what the judge, Scott McAfee, what mental gymnastics he would have to go through now in order to not disqualify them. Yeah, they lied under oath. Yes. Yeah, they engaged in a relationship, but we don't really have great evidence that the relationship predated their testimony, although now we do. You got Yurdi's testimony, you have Terrence Bradley's testimony, and you got cell data showing booty calls lasting 4 hours beforehand. So what mental gymnastics is he going to have to go through in order to not disqualify them? I don't think he can do it. But then after disqualification, if I've ever been convicted by Fani Willis, I'm going back and saying, check out the file now. Has she been this corrupt throughout her entire tenure as district attorney? And I suspect she has been. When she was getting the threats on her front lawn, it had nothing to do with the Trump case. It probably had to do with her corruption before the Trump case even hit the forefront. So I know I think they're getting disqualified. I'm sticking to that prediction, but I think they're going to face some serious sanctions, and there's going to be ramifications beyond this case, because we're now just, everybody's seeing the emperor has no clothes. These are the corrupt, incompetent, and above all else, unintelligent morons prosecuting these cases. And I don't know how people are going to stand for it, but we'll see. You know, Georgia has been said to be a relatively corrupt state. What's his face? Not Raffensperger. Kemp. Kemp. I mean, we'll see what he has to do, but this has gotten so much spotlight. There's going to be political pressure to act on this. Impeach them. There should be sanctions for what they've done above and beyond being removed from this case, which they have to be.
Yeah, I mean, again, you can't carry yourself into the court and then start picking up reams of paper and screaming, right? And like waving them around the court like a wild person, wearing your dress backwards, wearing your American flag pin upside down. Have you ever seen a hotter mess?
I think the dress backwards might have been debunked, where it was just not fitting properly. The pin was definitely upside down. I saw that in real time. It was comical. I mean, if this had been an episode of LA Law, you'd say this is farcically stupid. Yeah, but you see, no, this one doesn't have the bow. There's a bow on the front, so I think she had it the right way. It just didn't fit properly. But she was so unprofessional, so unhinged. And you compare that meltdown, that like it's a childish teenage meltdown. Yes. Compare that to her poised performance in front of the church, where she also lied. Bald-faced lies in the name of God on the pulpit of God. You compare those two demeanors, it's clear she's having a meltdown. She had those wrinkles under her eyes, like she hadn't slept in a week, like she's been crying herself to sleep at night. Maybe I'm projecting, but no, it was wild. And it went so well that while her attorney, Anna Cross, said, yeah, we're going to have another 4 to 5 hours cross with her, or redirect, whatever, they don't bring her back. She doesn't step foot in the courtroom the next day. That's how well it went. So, it's wild, but it's fun to watch. I mean, it's fun, it's entertaining, but it's wild in that we are revealing the true corruption, not just in the Georgia prosecution of Trump. We're seeing Leticia James pulling similar stupid stunts out of New York, Judge Engelron out of New York. We're seeing the whole corruption of the system laid bare in real time, where, the likes of Putin, Kim Jong-un are looking at Biden and saying, my goodness, you guys were criticizing us. We're taking notes from you now.
Yes, that's right. I mean, how do you have any moral standing in the world to go into these countries and say, no, democracy, rule of law, when the rule of law in America is clearly, if you run against the Democrat Party, we will destroy you. We will come after you, your family, your businesses. You have no more, there's no more moral ambiguity, right? No, like it's clearly like regime tactics, power politics. And then the dictators are simply around the world are simply going to say, okay, well, the gloves are off now, right?
I'm using the word communism and people don't think it's appropriate. It is communism what we're seeing out of these states. When, the state coming in through weaponized lawfare to seize private assets, put you behind bars. It's communism. I mean, you can give it another name, maybe like socialism or just fascism in general. But, and we're supposed to be happy. Well, at least we're not poisoning him. Putin poisoned Navalny after imprisoning him, giving him ridiculous sentences. Oh, well, at least we're not poisoning people. We're just trying to steal their assets, lock them up for life because they dare run against us. You got, Justin Trudeau out of Canada calling Putin an autocrat, where he's freezing bank accounts, using his police to beat the crap out of veterans, locking people up in years of pretrial detention, no trial, no conviction, no nothing. What happens when you lose the moral authority on an international scale, what happens is what we're witnessing. Nobody feels the need to abide by any written or unwritten law because those who've been preaching it are the ones violating it the most. But you got New York, Leticia James, seizure, unconstitutional fines, $455 million. You got a bullcrap RICO case where it seems that the only ones involved in RICO activities are Fani Willis and Nathan Wade and the entire, DA office. Then you got, further weaponization out of New York, the E. Jean Carroll Kangaroo Court $85 million judgment. We're seeing it now. And it's to the point where even the, what's his name? Mr. Wonderful. Kevin O'Leary. He's like, I'm leaving New York. And New York will become San Francisco in no time at all. Because we talked about it last night with Robert Barnes. It's like, suddenly that you're going to want to leave. You have a fiduciary obligation to your shareholders to get the hell out of these unpredictable, corrupt regimes where at the drop of a dime, they can say, we're coming after your stuff and we're going to put you out of business and put you behind bars. We'll find the crime. Just find me the person. So you have a fiduciary duty to get out of these places. It's wild to watch. It's an interesting time to be alive, Benny.
Yeah, I mean, it really does. It really does like create this massive self-sort that's going to happen in the country. And states like Florida and Texas, simply because they run off of rule of law and not communism, are going to become so remarkably wealthy. And the electoral power, the electoral college power of states like California and New York are going to collapse. I think it's going to spell really, really bad things. You've already seen it happen in Illinois. You've seen the panic sort of set in, and they're now in a desperation spiral, I think. There's no way out.
I mean, it's got to reverse course quickly. How are you going to attract business? Like New York has the highest taxes, I think, of all states, if I'm not mistaken. Where do you can't get blood from a turnip, and you can't get money from a stone. So you're going to chase out all of the tax-paying, revenue-generating enterprises for good bloody reason. And then what? You got an illegal immigrant crisis in New York. You've got social welfare programs that are not going to fund themselves. You're cutting police. You got a subway system that nobody can use, nobody wants to use. And you're chasing out those who paid the taxes to support the failing systems in the first place. It's they're entering the event horizon of the economic black hole from which they're not going to be able to escape. But, meanwhile, Florida's booming, Texas is booming, Tennessee is booming, and there'll be a shift. There'll be a shift to a state where you're not getting taxed up the wazoo. You're getting, there's problems in Florida, insurance and all those things, but at least the government leaves you alone a little bit more, and they don't try to ruin you, bankrupt you so that they can get their 9% interest on a $450 million judgment that is absolute rubbish to begin with.
Wow.
Oh, yeah.
I just don't know. I just don't know why. It's interesting because they've gone out of their way to say, no, this is just about Trump. This is just about Trump. It's not just about Trump. You sons of like, we know how this works. We've read our history books. Like, this isn't just about Trump. It's like the mail-in ballot. We cover the mail-in ballot fraud, and there's a new case every 2 hours about mail-in ballot fraud, and it's often used against Democrats. This is something that I don't think we spend enough time on. It's Democrats committing fraud using mail-in ballots against other Democrats in Democrat primaries. Like, once you open up this Pandora's box and once you rig the system, it will simply be used by the people who are immoral enough to use that lever against their opponents, right? And that will hurt It will hurt the Democrat businesses. I don't care what your ESG score is.
No, but Benny, you have Hochul coming out and saying it's only about Trump. That's a double-edged sword. I mean, that's damned if you do, damned if you don't. If it's not only about Trump, get the hell out. If it's only about Trump, thanks for admitting that this was a politically weaponized persecution from the get-go, and you can always substitute a Trump for someone else who becomes politically disfavored. But yes. What's really disgusting in all of this, I mean, a lot of people are waking up. I was watching some MSM coverage of the Fani Willis hearing, and even they're like, yeah, it's 50-50 that she gets tossed right now. When MSM is saying 50-50, it's like 90-10. But despite all of it, you still got your clapping smooth-brained seals of the audience of Stephen Colbert. You got the propagandists of Stephen Colbert, Jon Stewart and the like, still out there trying to tell you, it's okay, it's fine, we hate him and we'll tolerate this injustice. But we're witnessing in real time what we've seen mutatis mutandis throughout the ages. Just swap out racial prejudice for political prejudice. Swap out, the types of street justice that was carried out decades ago in different states for the type of street justice lawfare we're seeing right now. And look at the barking seals that are clapping this on, and you found who would have been tolerating the lynch mobs of decades ago. It's ultimately very depressing to watch to some extent, but I do think even the most TDS afflicted individuals are realizing it. To some extent, maybe not out of New York and California, but there's a lot of other people right in the middle who are now realizing that just by virtue of having sat in the middle, they've been pushed to the right.
Yes. Obviously, Elon Musk posts about this regularly. It is depressing. That's why I hate doing depressing on the show. I hate being a doomer or a black pillar on the show. You did bring up a hilarious meme of Nathan Wade and what he might have been thinking about during the cabin. We do have that meme. I think it's probably the appropriate time to play it right now, Rolls Royce.
Ever.
All this time we've been together, thought a thing would last forever. Through thick and thin, good or bad, I was happy, never sad. Now it's all gone.
I think this is unedited.
Well, the music
how it was broadcast.
The music is different, but the pause is there.
Yeah.
No, Betty, it's funny. I was going to say, like, if you use the original with the Marvin Gaye "Let's Get It On," the copyright trolls on YouTube go right after the entire stream. So you swapped out the music for, I hope, not copyright.
We got you, man. Yeah, that's
man.
right.
But you watched that and you'd think they paused it or looped together a silent scene like Pink Trip does with his edits. But no, you would have thought that was a joke manipulated other than the music. That dude was sitting there thinking like, oh, geez, how do I get through this lie? And no, it's amazing. I feel, but at the end of the day, I feel bad for Nathan Wade. I feel bad for Terrence Bradley because they got used and abused by Fani Willis. She was the spear in all of this, and this is the destruction that she leaves in her wake.
We appreciate, Viva, you coming on and helping us in this destruction. You yourself are a one-man wrecking ball. Everyone needs to apply and subscribe to Viva's channels. and specifically on X, but then also on Locals, right?
Yeah, we got a wild, beautiful community, vivabarneslaw.locals.com, and the hearing, the Fani Willis hearing, picks back up, if it does, on Friday, March 1st. I'll be live streaming it.
Ooh, we're excited for that. Hey, God bless you, man. Godspeed.
Thank you very much. You too.